Okay, so now we're going to do a different operation than the ones we have done, but you've already done this before. You just might not be familiar with the name of it. Most calculators have a button on it that handles modulus operators. It usually says mod on it, and it's useful for a bunch of things. So the first thing, and I'll show you why in just a minute, the operation that we're going to do is only works for integers. So you can't use a modulus operation on a decimal value because what this does is it generates the remainder of a division. So we don't get the quotient, which is the value of the division. We instead get the remainder of the division. So let's take a look at an example where this will make sense. So imagine that we had some number of roses and then some number of bouquets of those roses. And then in addition, some number of single leftover roses. Whoops, this is semicolon. So this will kind of represent the leftover. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the amount of roses. We're going to find out how many bouquets we're going to have. So this is going to be dozens of roses. And then what we're going to do is we'll figure out, okay, well, how much is all of this going to cost? So now a bouquet of roses, sorry, I'm going to represent this differently, is going to cost well over $75, when it is close to Valentine's Day. So that's what I'm going to represent here. So for that, this will be our known value. So const double bouquet. And then when we need to represent multiple words, we can do it like this. With a constant. So we're going to use an underscore for that. So let's say $75.99. Okay. Const double. Now the cost of a single rose is going to be $9.99. There we go. Okay. So these are the two prices. So obviously, if you're getting a large amount, what you would rather do is get them by the dozen. So that's what this is going to represent. So what we need to do is we're going to start by prompting the user for how many roses they want. So how many roses do you want? There we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cin the amount of roses. Now that I'm looking at this, I also need to put a double cost. So we're going to be calculating it in that value. Okay. So we're going to ask how many roses do they want. And now what we have to do is we have to figure out how many full bouquets of roses will that be. So we're going to calculate it like this. Bouquets is going to be equal to the amount of roses divided by 12. Okay. And then we'll put full bouquets of roses. I'm having the hardest time spelling that word. Okay, so let's see what we've got. So I'm going to run the program. Oh, what did I do here? Oh, definitely need semicolons at the end of the lines of code. Okay, how many roses do we want? I want 24, which is going to be 2 of them. Great. Put a space here. I'm going to run this again, and we'll take a look at what happens when we enter some different values for this. So now I'm going to go just slightly over the 12. How many do I want? I want 13 this time. Okay, so it's 1. So now what we have to do is we have to figure out, are we going to have a problem if I want 23 roses? Is this going to tell me 2 here, which is not the case, right? If I have 23, that's not enough for 2 full bouquets of roses. So I'm going to run this again, and I'm going to put 23. And we still get 1. So notice that this doesn't round the value off. We just lose the decimal because it's an integer value. Okay, so that's really helpful, especially in this situation. Now what I want to do is I want to find out how many are left over. Now what you could do, and don't do this calculation because I want you to demonstrate later that you can use the modulus. But if we wanted, we could expand how many this would be. So the amount of roses would be equal to the original amount, and then we subtract the amount of full bouquets of roses we had multiplied by how many were in those bouquets. So like in the case where we had 23, here we would get 23 minus 12, which would tell us that we have 11 left over. But don't do the calculation this way because it makes your code hard to read, and I really want you to demonstrate that you can use this other method. So single roses, single, is going to be equal to, now we did before roses divided by 12. This time we're going to put the percent sign here. Now this gets confusing because this absolutely has nothing to do with a percentage. So this is the modulus operator, which means it's going to generate not the quotient, the result of the division, it's going to generate the remainder of the division. So and we'll call this one singles. Okay, and then we'll see if this works. So I'm going to put in my example of, let's do 20. So if I want 20, that should give me 1 full bouquet with 8 left over. And that's exactly what I get. So this is pretty useful. Now what we can do is we can use these values to determine what the total price of the order is. So we're going to make the cost equal to how many bouquets of roses we have multiplied by the bouquet cost. I'm going to use the little drop down. And then we're going to add on the amount of single roses multiplied by the single cost. There we go. So now we need to just display that. So cout the total cost is going to be, put a little $sign in here, and then I'm going to put the cost. I didn't put tax on, so I know I won't have more than 2 decimal places for this, so I should be safe. So I'm going to run that. Okay, how many roses do I want? I'm going to go with 20 again. So 20 roses using that formula is going to generate $155.91. So there are a ton of places that we can make use of this modulus, and we'll continue to learn a little bit more of sort of its applications.